Hi folks, welcome to another shop update. Welcome to 2021. Here's everything that we've been up to. We picked up an Amazon rack and we picked up a Uline rack. The Uline rack was more expensive, well worth it. It's got better features, it's painted, and this one just has too many sharp edges. Nevertheless, we used to have a horizontal rack to store material, way more efficient to keep this stuff vertical. And we are absolutely loving this dual spindle lathe. I will say that we could not do what we're doing as a shop right now without this machine. We make a couple of our products on it. We've been making a ton of support fixtures and tooling internally. It's got a Y-axis that moves this way. It's got the sub spindle, and it's got the Capto style driven tool holders that let us make some pretty cool parts on it, like our diamond pins and our mod vise washers. We also just got the new Tormach 8L lathe. We've made a couple chips with it. We're debugging a couple things on it. But I'm actually really excited to have this machine work. We're gonna run it a little bit differently. We're gonna build a library of tools that have recipes that we can keep set up offline in the quick change tool post holder. So it won't be a production machine at all, but what we need is something to make one-offs or test things where I don't wanna program it or risk or set up this huge, expensive, more capable machine for stuff where we're like, hey, I have an idea on something. It's gotta be a CNC lathe. We wanna make sure this thing is accurate. So far, the test cuts that we've done are pretty good, but a lot more to come on that, and we'll be sure to put a video on it. The two main products that we make are what looks like a mill part. This is an angled washer for our mod vices. They run great on the lathe, and it uses a lot of live tooling features, and it lets us use round bar to make these in an automated fashion. We actually did a video where we talked all about how we're using automation and how really a bar-fed lathe is probably the cheapest way of getting into automation. Even we can't figure out right now how to do pallet systems or robots, either because of cost or complexity, but bar-fed lathe, that's actually really easy. The other thing we're making on it is our diamond pins, much more of a traditional lathe part. We care a lot about the tolerance, particularly on this part right here. So we're gonna do a video on some of the hacks that we've done on that machine to get it to kind of do better than it should. And that's something I absolutely love, whether it's the little Tormach machine or the Haas machine, is how do we get the most out of these machines? Ends up a big part of that is how temperature sensitive is it, and we wrote a program which we'll share that won't let that program run unless the spindle temperature sensor reads an adequate value. So basically it foolproofs the program so that you can't run it if the machine has cooled off or hasn't been warmed up. The other thing that we just realized, such an obvious win, is when we make parts like this, we always put them into egg crates when they come off the machine. That way, if there's ever a problem, you can go backward and figure out what happened and when. But it also is a way of counting, which is quite great. And instead of just dumping them into these bins like we used to, we now put them into 100 packs. And in it, we put a desiccant pack and a piece of VCI paper. We just started doing this, and so we want to make sure that they don't rust. So we'll be checking on those, and we'll report back if we do have any problems, but that way you know the quantity that you have. And this system with our new ERP is working great. The top red bin is our normal inventory. As soon as you have to crack into the second one, that triggers a reorder. You barcode scan this. In this case, it emails an internal work order that says that those need made. However, barcoding our bigger raw material has actually been kicking our butt. I think we figured it out, and the answer is simple. Just put the barcode on a little piece of wood. It's a scrap wood that comes over from material deliveries. The wood's substantial enough that it doesn't blow away, and it means we don't have to try to tape it to the material or staple it to the pallet where it either goes away, gets blown away, or ripped off. We also have found these new pallet jacks. Total game changer. In the past, we had two of the larger ones. We kept one of them, but we've got a couple of these now. We bought them from Northern Tool. They're so much easier to maneuver around a lot of these material pallets that come in from the places that we buy raw material from, and they're much more maneuverable, and sometimes the big pallet jacks just don't fit in the little guys. Speaking of quality of life, I like keeping a clean shop. It's not always easy, but we found a new tool that's absolutely amazing. I didn't know they existed. A cordless vacuum. It's just DeWalt powered. It just takes the same batteries that they use. I'm sure other people make them as well if you're in like the Makita family. The batteries have a little indicator light that tells you how much left on it, but super easy to grab this thing, move it around, clean up a mess when you need to. I can also report back that adding the Skyhooks on our machines was absolutely the right thing to do. It's been the easiest way by far to load and unload the material. They're not always super easy to align and it's kind of the XY, but a lot of times what we do is just get it in place and then we just jog the table around so that it's right underneath the heavy piece of material. Our friend Amish just put one in as well for his DMG. It looks great. I regret not realizing that you can get them custom colored because his white one, frankly, looks way better than our yellow ones. We also added a second version of our boring head. This is probably one of the first high-end tools that I ever bought when we were making our fixture plates, and we just had to get a second one, and it's basically the same thing except this one is Bluetooth. This one can show you the digital readout on an app so that you can monitor and track where your insert is. We're really happy with the 6s, but I've never loved Haas's mist collectors, so when we got these, we tried their mist condensers, which is a different version, and I wouldn't say it's bad, but we do a lot of through spindle coolant work, and it's not good enough, in my opinion. I was hoping it would be, and it may be if you don't do through spindle. So we're adding the same Royal units that we have on the VM3. These are similar to what we had in the past, like the filter mist style or mistaways. The difference is these are centrifugal, so they're, I think, a little bit more powerful, a little bit better. You do have to clean them, I think, every year, but relatively maintenance-free. They're a little bit more expensive, and they're a little bit louder, but I don't want one that's cheaper and quieter but doesn't do enough job of pulling all of that mist out. And this one, at least on the VM3, has done that, so we're excited to get those installed. And lastly, knock on wood, we've never had a flood in our shop, but it scares the heck out of me to think that somehow something could flood. And we've had some friends have really bad floods in their shop, so we found these IoT flood sensors, and we've just put a couple around the shop. The little receiver things up there, the flood sensors down there on the ground. They're about 20, 30 bucks. You need a hub. We went with the Samsung SmartThings hub, but there's a bunch of different versions of them, and it's actually great. If those things trip, we use IFTTT, if this then that, and I get a text message, or we can trigger an alert or an alarm or a siren or something like that. But so far it's been great. We haven't had a flood, but man, the thought of running something overnight or even just a water line leaking really scares me, because now we do have, especially now that we have our IBC tote with water lives back there, and then you can see the white lines that run around our shop. That system is working great. It deserves its own video, but even if you're a small shop, I would really encourage you, don't haul water around. What a pain in the butt. And this has worked great because it gives us water drops to each machine, so we need to do top off, and then if we need to do coolant, we just move the barrel over, we disconnect the hose here that's water and plug that into our piston mixer, and then out of that comes whatever concentration we dial in there. Pretty slick. We also got the 24R from Tormach, and I'm excited for this for a totally different reason. You know, the lathe that we got, the 8L, is really more of a support machine and a small, tool room type lathe. The question is, and we just got it, can we turn this into kind of a poor man's Datron? We loved the Datron. It was an amazing machine, but we just couldn't justify that machine for what we use it for. But we want a machine that has the larger format. We want a machine that has primary vacuum holding, like this does to the table. We want to be able to drop fixture plates or mod vice style stuff on top of it when you don't want vacuum. And we want to be able to make things like the plate savers that we sell, and then also just general testing. I love this because it's the first time we've actually got Tormach outside of the scrape dovetail gibs, and they've moved over to linear rails, and it really is a decent machine. Alex has been doing a bunch of test cuts on it, and so far, we're mostly interested in aluminum, and if we can do aluminum, I'm not too worried about wood. It's been great. So we're going to do more testing on it, and then we'll end up putting that stuff out. We'll do a video, and we've got some stuff already coming out on Proven Cut on what this machine can do. I'm told it will have an ATC, which to me is key. This machine without an ATC is not interesting. Only thing I don't love about it is it's a 110 machine, but the spindle could be more powerful in my opinion. That would require 240, which you already need to use this vacuum hold down system. So I'm kind of hoping that may be something that comes about, because frankly that machine is rigid enough and rugged enough to take a little bit more spindle horsepower. We'll keep you posted on that. I've been just pouring myself though into the dual spindle, the SC20Y. I love it. We've got a video coming out on how we program the dual spindle lathe parts. I had a problem actually just yesterday, which I think we figured out, where all of a sudden we were really blowing through parting inserts and really having a problem. And I think that we just had a little bit of an alignment issue, and it's a great reminder to go back to the fundamentals on looking at, is it cutting on center line? Are all the bolts tight? Is everything snug? It wasn't just a speeds and feeds issue. So with that, folks, hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you learned something. Take care. See you soon.